Good afternoon, teacher. Today we are going to talk about brain-based learning, a tool for mindful learning in the class. And our members of this group are Josias Cruz, Isis Lopez, Lisbeth Morales, and Cristina Tamayo. So let's start with the presentation.
Learning is a relatively continuous product of experience that is a result of interaction between the individual and the environment. The concept of learning is of vital importance when explaining human behavior. Brain-based learning deals with the concept of learning in a neuropsychological learning context. The brain is a basic factor in learning, so learning is affected by environment factors. So psychological qualities of the individual and the chemical structure of the organisms and this interaction reflect the learning process. Next.
Brain-based learning. Brain-based teaching strategies are effective for all learners, regardless of their learning difficulties. The most recent trend in brain-based learning applies fields for cognitive neuroscience. Brain-based learning places a strong emphasis on physical exercise or movement in the classroom. Brain-based learning principles show how brain-based learning can be beneficial in the teaching learning process. The principles do need to be understood and applied in the classroom. And next, please. Principles for brain-based learning in the classroom. The structure and function of the brain. The brain is a vital for human understanding and learning ability. The brain is divided into different areas called lobes, and each lobe is responsible for different activities or functions. Okay, next please. Cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain and is divided into the right and left hemispheres. The two hemispheres are linking the bundles of nerves which allow communication between each side of the brain. The most prevalent neuromyths among teachers is the difference between in the learners which results due to the dominance of the two hemispheres of the brain. Each hemisphere of the cerebrum is divided into the following lobes. Okay, the following lobes is the first. Frontal lobe is considered the motor control complex, those relationships and social thinking. The parietal lobe is used for all our perceptions. The occipital lobe is a process of visual point. Temporal lobe processes both auditory or hearing and olfactory smelling input. Limbic system refers as the brain emotional system. The cerebellum. The cerebellum is the area responsible for balances, movement, and coordination, especially awareness. Brain stem is the area as answerable for the heart rate, breathing, blood pressures, reflex. All these functions of the brain supported the neurons are helped to transmit information through the body. Neocortex is a human beings are privileged to have ability to act willing and in conscious. We use our brain and nervous systems to exercise voluntary control over our decisions as to eat, take a walk, sit down, or read a book, and we control our muscles to carry out those choice. Thank you. Next.
The structure and function of neuron. A neuron is a specialized cell found in the ganglia of the brain. The ganglia are nothing more than a group of neurons located outside the central nervous system. Neurons come in many different shapes and sizes, but they are some common features. Virtually all neurons have a cell body, an axon, and one or more dendrites, as can be seen in the image. All neurons have three basic functions. Those are two. The first one, receive signals or information. The second one is incorporate and common signals. And then finally, communicate signals to target cells or other neurons. Next, please. Meaningful learning. Meaningful learning has occurred when a learner has gained the relevant knowledge and can also use the knowledge to solve problems. The knowledge can be transferred to new problems and new learning situations. A simple example of this is we are going to read a text about Nelson Mandela. And before we read the text, we show a picture of Nelson Mandela. And the learners what they know about him, obviously. And we also ask them what they liked about him. That's the basic pre-reading. It is also the basis of meaningful learning. Some characteristics about this is active, original, communicative, and connection. Next.
Okay, and now brain-based learning, a tool for mindful learning in the class. So, educators and neuroscience work together to create mindful programs. And neuroeducation in the classroom is a scientific tool for educators. And cognitive skills are also developed through the brain-based learning. Then students can evaluate, analyze, remember, and make comparisons themselves. And also, the mindful learning teaches the students important cognitive skills, which are based of in their education. According to the constructivist, learning is a neuroscience process that helps students to understand more on a subject. And in addition, neuroscience provides students with strategies to improve their grades. So, as a teachers, it's very important that we understand about all the brain because each student is very different. And in the conclusion, we can say that the brain is the principal tool that helps humans to understand the world. Also, the brain plays an important role in the human learning because people can save different information. We can say that the brain is like a computer because also the computer can almacenate a lot of information, but the brain is more powerful than a computer. And also, it's very important that people take care and keep their brain active. It could be with different activities such as reading or maybe do different kind of sports.
Feedback. The concept of brain-based learning deals with the subject of educational psychology, which is the most important in the learning process. Brain-based learning is influenced to develop student cognitive thinking. Since the brain is the basic tool of the learning process, it is related to environment factors, social factors for student behavior change. Brain-based learning occurred from birth of learnings. The structure and function of the brain helps develop the capacity for the learning process of children. Thanks.
And, and now we are going to continue with
The
a little
brain
video
is the
about
most
the brain.
complex organ in the human body. The brain is the most complex organ in the human body. As part of the nervous system, the brain coordinates all of the body's functions. In adult humans, the brain is a 3-pound gelatinous mass of fat and protein. It's comprised of 4 main regions: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the brainstem, and the diencephalon, and each one controls specific tasks. The largest section is the cerebrum, and it makes up over 3/4 of the brain's volume. It consists of neurons and nerve fibers that transmit information from the neurons throughout the brain and body. The cerebrum controls higher functions such as learning, reasoning, and speech, plus senses like sight and hearing.
Okay, thank you, teacher, for your attention. That is all.